Welcome to Be Time, everybody. I'm Beth Bierbauer, healthcare executive, author, and host of this podcast. Be Time is a podcast for individuals who want to invest in themselves and their careers through continuous learning. In each week on Be Time, I have the privilege of interviewing a seasoned executive, company founder, or other industry expert, and we talk about a variety of business matters. So whether you're with a large company or small, inside the healthcare industry or out, Be Time has something for you to help you stay on top of your game. So let's get started. We've all heard the term, food is medicine. And today we are going to explore that link between food and health. With us is Ari Tulla, who is co-founder of Elo, which is a precision nutrition company. Today we are going to learn exactly what precision nutrition is and why it is important. Now, prior to founding Elo, Ari was CEO of BetterDoctors and Quest Analytics, and he also spent time at Nokia. He is a Finn, and the word Elo means life or happiness in that language. Please join me in welcoming Ari Tulla to the Be Time podcast. Ari, welcome to Be Time.
Thank you, Beth. I'm excited to be here.
We are glad to have you. So, when we think about healthy eating, we think about eating our fruits, our vegetables, right? Low carbs, but precision nutrition seems to be taking it to a new level. So would you explain to our audience what exactly is precision nutrition and what's the driver behind this concept?
Let me take maybe a step sideways a bit and start by saying that I've been looking at this space for a long time, nutrition in general. And I think nutrition journalism and news are the original fake news. That is the area where we have been bombarded with confusing headlines that feel like a whiplash, even on a good day. Think about this. You read the newspaper. Today the eggs are bad. Tomorrow they're good again. No one should drink milk, no any adult at least. And today, no one should drink oat milk either. Fats are bad. Now they're good. Well, you should avoid heating them up. Vegetarian diet is more harmful for the environment than the omnivore diet. Well, you get the point. I mean, there's like a lot of these headlines that are popping up every day. We love reading them. We love reading about nutrition studies, fancy diets, the miracle superfoods, and the media is feeding us really well. That's kind of where we are today. So what we do at Elo and why we call our product nutrition with precision or precision nutrition is that we offer nutrition solutions that are scientifically proven in human trials. We are assessing your body, by collecting data about you. Think about blood testing, wearable device data, longitudinal health record. And then we use AI to turn that data into tasty molecules that help you perform at your optimal level or heal you. That's precision nutrition for us. It takes the personalization to a whole new level.
Well, that's really helpful. And we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into what Elo is doing. But I do want to sort of stay at that high level for a minute. And when I think about nutrition, and I think about the education, and you're absolutely right. Every day there's a different headline, and what you were doing last week is no longer valid this week. But I think back to my primary years, and we got a little bit in school, but it doesn't seem like nutrition has really been prioritized, whether it's in primary school, your secondary schooling, certainly not been prioritized in traditional healthcare. So, has much changed? Are you seeing now that it's becoming a priority in institutions so that people are getting this foundation, if you will, at a young age?
Yes and no. Nutrition has a vital role in human health. And I think the last 50 years, we've been truly stressing the limit of our adaptability as a species related to food. The kind of addictive, very low cost, ultra processed foods that today are making 75% of the US adults overweight. They cost our healthcare system close to 2 trillion a year, and about 1 million people die every year from the impact of diet-related conditions, namely type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. However, this is not just a domestic problem here in the US, but it's a global one. So we've been able to kind of export the Western diet to most countries, and are right now seeing the impact in India, for example, and other countries where the diet-related comorbidities are dramatically increasing the COVID mortality rate. India is now in the news, of course, today, but I think we're going to see other countries follow suit. So we as human, I think we're the only species on Earth who doesn't know how to eat. It's really, I think, interesting. So you can take a toddler and they actually have a sense of eating the right quantity of the right food at the right time. You take toddlers and you give them foods, they will actually pick the right foods and eat them in the right order, told by their body. We have somehow lost that trait when we grow old. Eating right is actually very tough after your brain especially has been brainwashed by this kind of the media coverage, by advertising, by the food selection for many decades. Think about the basic truth. Nearly all the food advertising on TV, in-store marketing, and the happy hour menus, they are foods that you should never eat or drink, depending where you are. Pepsis and the Whole Foods have desperately lost the battle of our attention. And I think that you said about schools, and I think that's a really, really important factor. And I think, in my opinion, that is the single greatest mistake I think we have done as a society, where we have handed over the school lunch program to the ultra-processed food manufacturers. Now we have a few generations already under our belt of people who have grown up with this type of food, the ultra-processed food. No wonder the type 2 diabetes has become a national epidemic. And so what has changed? There hasn't really been a single big event or one incident that has kind of changed the way how people think, but we have slowly let the ultra-processed food industry take over our food, agriculture production, and the policy making even. I mean, it's very difficult to get a new policy through in the current day and age. I mean, you might remember, for example, Michelle Obama. She was talking about fit and better nutrition for kids. She couldn't get it going because of the corn lobby said no. And that's pretty interesting. Like, you're the most powerful person in the world, and they are thriving as the first family, this one initiative. And it wasn't really that big of a problem, I think, for industry even, but they still, killed it. So luckily, it's not all on doom and gloom. There are many pockets of people who are fighting back with their actions. Farmers markets are popping up every town. Farm to table movement is strong as ever. And a lot of new studies are proving that food can be turned from the cause of disease to medicine that actually could heal us. So that's a long-winded answer, but I think there's a lot of light end of the tunnel, but the situation is quite gloom today.
And when we think about food and really what it can do for health, immediately we go to chronic conditions, diabetes, things like that. But if you're not eating the right foods, you can have a whole series of other issues, from migraines to acne to, right, all kinds of conditions that we don't necessarily think about could in fact be tied to the food that we're eating. Is that right?
Yeah, I think food is such an interesting component of our life because you can't live without it, and we have to eat 3-4 times a day, every day, and we often are driven by our very basic nervous system. I mean, we all know when we get hungry, we don't really think about what we eat. We're gonna eat what we get at the time, and often we make our decisions of food choices when we are getting hungry already. Like, we all know that you should never go to a grocery store starving, because you're going to buy stuff that you should definitely not buy. And that's how we operate. So it is very, very interesting. And for me, it's been a new world because I haven't been looking at all these studies for that long in a holistic way. And last year, I spent a lot of time just reading and learning and understanding. And maybe the biggest surprise for me personally was that we know little. We know far too little about how the food is impacting our body and our brain, because the hormones and the different, neurotransmitters are very, very complicated, and we just frankly don't know a lot about how it works.
So before we dive into Elo, how did you get here? Was there a personal story that you had an impact and you put two and two together? Tell us how you got to the place where you said, I'm going to do something about this.
That's one of the areas that I spend a lot of time thinking myself, and I've been in a very, very luxurious position that I've been able to work in different interesting companies and a handful of different fields of industry in the last 20 years. And also being in a position where I can kind of pick and choose what I want to work on. And Elo is basically a company that I've been probably preparing myself for 20 years. My wife had a thyroid tumor 21 years ago, and it was operated early, and it didn't turn out to be life-threatening. However, the operation resulted in multitude of hormonal imbalances and autoimmune diseases that made it nearly impossible to get pregnant. So 10 years after the operation, we spent almost half our time on thinking about how do we reverse that course, because you fall in love and you find a love of your life, and of course you want to start a family, and that was basically made impossible. And we spent over a decade on learning on nutrition and mindfulness, and of course we also used Western medicine, but we finally were able to reverse a condition by the food mainly, and that was really, I think, a wonderful learning experience for us. And then we have now two beautiful children to prove the point that food can be and is medicine. And since then, I've been a huge believer. And we basically went on from eating the normal Western diet to eat diet with really no meat, no wheat, no sugar. And we've been on that track for 17 years now. And when we go to school reunions where we meet people, our old friends, I mean, people always ask, like, why do we look so great? And I think it's really part about the diet. And of course, we also try to live very healthily. And some people, they call me like a monk nowadays, because I've been pretty tight about it, and it's a big part of my life. And so I started my previous company, BetterDoctor, about 10 years ago. That was also started on the basis of the idea that I had, because we were having our medical journey. We met a ton of different doctors, first in Europe. I'm from Finland, where we started our journey, and then later in the US. And it was really difficult to find the right care for my wife, Anu, and we met with dozens and dozens of doctors, and had a really hard time finding somebody who understood her specific condition. And this experience of complexity, it convinced me of the idea behind BetterDoctor, a doctor finder service. And before we started that with my then co-founder Tapio Tolvanen, we spoke about a lot of other ideas, and one of them was called social food. So I actually wrote a presentation 10 years ago about the same company that we are now building, and it was quite similar. However, at 2010, it felt way too science fiction to build a precision nutrition company. We didn't have the food delivery system like today. We didn't have the science that now we can deduct from our bodies by wearable devices and at-home testing and so forth. And we didn't really have the knowledge about nutrition like we have today. So I mean, I just feel really kind of humbled on this whole thing that I'm now able to kind of piecemeal the learning I have had from I spent another decade in the video games business, and kind of learning from that how to build a game, like how to build an experience that can help people change their behavior. And I spent a stint in a fast-moving consumer goods industry, how to build brands and how to build companies and products there. And then, of course, the last decade I spent in healthcare, in the enterprise healthcare mainly with the BetterDoctor and Quest Analytics. And it's been interesting now to kind of take all the learning and try to bottle it into one idea that is turning out to be Elo. And this will probably take more than 10 years to get going, but it's a really worthy cause for I think for myself, because it really is part of my life.
Well, timing is everything. And I do think that you are at the right or pivotal moment, if you will, because so many people are now realizing it isn't about how I look, it is about how I feel. And how I feel is determined very much by what we take off of our plate and put into our mouths. And I think the older you get, the more you realize that we just need to get to younger people sooner so that they can understand it. But let's switch gears here and talk about your company. What exactly is it? What would I expect as a consumer interacting with your company? What do you do?
Yeah, so the broad idea what we have and I always believe that the company, it needs to have a big BHAG vision, something that you can rally the troops around, something that you can always go back to when the times get tough, as they always do. And in our case, the big vision is really like, can we help the world to turn food from the cause of disease to medicine? And it may sound simple. It's maybe a 2,000-year-old idea from Hippocrates. And I think it's very, very timely today to think about that. And Elo is a precision nutrition company. The idea is to turn the food from the cause of disease to medicine by using power of data. Our mission is really ambitious. And it's really, I think, capitalizing on this growing consumer appetite for nutrition-focused health solutions, underpinned by science. So really, some of the kind of the leading drivers for us is we want to be precise. Anything we do, we want to be precise. And precise in our mean, it also means transparent. We're going to tell you what things are. Then we're going to focus a lot on idea around how can we make this very convenient for you. And there are two questions we ask every day at the company. The one is, so what? Like, so what? What does it matter? Like, what does this data matter to you? What does this thing matter to you? And then the second question that we are now starting to answer, that is really the core of the whole thing. It's then what? So first you need to understand, to trust us. You need to get the so what. And then in order to get the outcomes you want to see, you need to answer then what. And really give people guidance, not just ideas what to do, but we are actually delivering the nutrition to their door and to the kitchen counter. So the number one step we do is assessing. We use data from at-home blood testing today, but we are agnostic. We can do DNA, we can do microbiome, any type of testing you can do at home. We use the wearable device information. So Apple Health Kit is this amazing vitriol today that is giving you access to all the devices you have. Like I have an Oura Ring, I have an Apple Watch, I have a scale, I have a blood pressure cuff. All the data is flowing via the Apple Health Kit into the Apple data depository, where I, as a person, can let Elo or any other company look at my data and use my data, and I can control the privacy as a person. So it's a really wonderful platform. And Apple Health Kit today, it connects to a lot of different health systems and almost all the lab vendors. So if I so wish, I can also let Elo get access to my longitudinal health data from my medical record and from my lab data. So of course I have opened all that, and I'm been quite a biohacker for a long time and been very actively collecting data about me. So my data file today is something like 200,000-300,000 data points that I was able to give Elo in the very beginning. And then there's a lot of information to data mine and understand from the AI perspective. And lastly, we of course do a questionnaire about your health, and not only understanding like how do you feel, but also understanding how do you eat, what do you like, and what do you value. I think the value part is a really important factor when we talk about food, because I might want to eat organic food. I might want to eat the local food from my local area. I'm in California, so I'm kind of lucky. And those are important factors for me. Who am I and how do I eat? And then second, we are looking at recommendations. So today what we did, and we are in the very beginning of this company, but the idea is kind of fun. We took about 3,000 peer-reviewed scientific studies that have human trials on nutrition, and we took them as a baseline for our AI. So we are having artificial intelligence that is generating your personalized nutrition recommendation for supplements and food and meals based on this peer-reviewed set of studies. And then we are delivering these options via our partners. So Elo will not be the Coast Kitchen likely. Elo will not be creating the supplements or the powders or whatnot. We partner with the verified parties. We test the products, we validate the product, and then we ship them to you in the most convenient manner. And lastly, Elo has the component of support. We have health coaches that oversee the AI. They tweak the individual plans and provide ongoing guidance via the Elo app or via telemedicine consult. And that has been a really interesting learning for me, because I didn't know that the people we go after and the people we work with today, they really value the coaching. But that is becoming probably the most important single factor, that people love the fact that they can talk to a person, to look at their data, to understand it better, and really answer the so what and the why question properly. And lastly, I think this idea that you can go on a mobile app and you can ask a question whenever you want, asynchronously, super powerful. People love that, and it hit me that because it was just a test, like let's test it out, and then we had like the first 100 people, they absolutely loved it. So we're going to keep that coaching layer as a core piece of the product. So number one, we assess you, then we recommend and deliver you nutrition, and finally we are supporting you on an everyday basis to make the behavior change easy.
Part of your assessment, do you look at family history? So as an example, oftentimes people are concerned as they age about Alzheimer's, right? And if you do 23andMe, it'll tell you if you have any ancestry from, I think, Western Europe, you're at higher risk for Alzheimer's. So do you factor that? Do you factor those types of things in, such as family history and those things that people are concerned about, saying, hey, listen, I don't really care about anything else, but I want to make sure that when I'm 90, I'm still thinking clearly and critically. So this is what I want to work on. Or is it just broader than that?
I think that's a really good point. And we were just actually having earlier a science meeting about that very topic. We are now starting to incorporate the DNA into the mix. And exactly like you said, many of us already have done sequencing at 23andMe, Ancestry, and so forth. What can you do? You can go and download your SNPs and SNPs, and you can upload that to whoever you want. And then that can be analyzed in many different ways. And we, of course, at Elo, we are building the best SNP analyzer related to nutrition and these different traits that are related to long-term health. There are also another point that people might not think about so much, but I'm a big believer myself, which basically is ancestral diet. And it's really interesting. So I'm involved as an investor in a few companies who are doing glucose monitoring. So I have a glucose monitor here, and then another one in the other arm. And that's basically a tool where I can see in real time how my glucose is spiking. And in the last year of doing it, I have recorded 1,000 meals, maybe 1,100 already. And I learned a lot, but the key learning for me was that for me, white rice spikes me always. Corn will spike me always. Those are two foods that my ancestors didn't even know they are. I'm from Finland, it's a very remote country in a cold environment. There was no rice, there was no corn. I can eat potatoes, I can eat bread without a spike. So that's also another area that, knowing where you come from, we actually might be able to understand what foods are going to be high or low glycemic. And we are testing it with other people, with the heritage coming from China or from India. and they can eat all the rice they want, and they have no spike because there's 1,000 years of tolerance created on it. In Finland, almost everybody can drink milk because milk was the only substance to keep people going in the winter days. So I think these are really important factors. And I mean, maybe one more point. I'm a bit geeky on this topic because I just spent a lot of time talking to people about it. There's a new realm of science where we are looking at not DNA, but we are looking at the epigenetic basis of who we are, and we can do methylation studies. We can actually sequence us in a more detail, and there's new clinical trials and new studies coming out. These are not published yet, so I can't promise these are real, but it seems that there's an ability to look at Alzheimer's and even pinpoint the time and the age you will likely get it. And this is now coming up in studies in the next year or so. But that is a huge thing to do, because once you know that you have, 23andMe says that you might be having a higher disposition for Alzheimer's. What if a second study will tell you that you will likely have early Alzheimer's at the age of 65? You're going to do anything you can do and everything you can do in your life to change that. And I think diet has a massive role, of course, as well as keeping active and keeping your brain active. But we are all, of course, afraid. And some of my family members have that snip telling that they are risk. And that is a really scary thing to have.
I like your perspective on a few things, especially when you think about your country of origin, right? Where your family is from. It absolutely makes sense that what may be a trigger for me may not be a trigger for you. And if we think about eliminating every carb, for example, well, that's when you have people who can't stick to the lifestyle because they're saying, I can't live like this. I just can't eat only plants or only meat. I need some carbs or I need this. So really understanding that personalization, I think, would help people follow a lifestyle program better. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think I think that's an interesting point. I might be wrong, and I might be going over my skis a bit here, but I'm talking every day inside Elo, and a lot of people I'm interacting with, and I say the same thing. I say that diet is not a construct that we should really use. Diet is an artificial limitation of food products that we eliminate because it's easier for our brain to keep up and understand that. Because we are very limited beings, like you already said, we eat when we are hungry. We make bad decisions when we're hungry and so forth. And we often make bad decisions in food. We all know that. Well, why do we go to the fridge at 11 at night? Like, don't do that, lock it or something. But anyhow, the problem is that the diet is just this sort of a stupid concept we thought about because we had to make life easier. Think about if it would be an AI assistant who is kind of helping you to eat right. The diet is not a problem for AI. It is a very simple mathematical model to understand that, you should eat these things in this sequence. Because very few of us, even if you are eating a diet specifically and we are good at it, we don't really think about what did we eat yesterday? What did we eat 2 days before? What about a week before? We have no recollection of it. I mean, we have seen a lot of data from food studies where people are kind of keeping a log of their food, or we ask people, what did you eat last week? They get it 70% wrong, by the way. They have no idea what they ate a week ago. Like, no idea. Like, I don't know. Definitely didn't eat the chocolate cake on Monday. But that's kind of my concept. I think the diet should go away. We should be eating food and foods that we enjoy and feel fulfilling, not just from the appetite fulfilling perspective, but also from the mental perspective. And the more we think about these diets, the more we think about these things, the more stressed we get. And I think the worse it will be for us as a whole.
Agree. Now, do you sell your services directly to consumers, or are you working with employers and health plans? How are you distributing?
It's a really interesting question because I've been in this space of enterprise healthcare now for almost 10 years. And I'm involved in quite a few companies as an advisor or investor and so forth. And I think there are two ways to go to market with a company like Elo. The first one is that you can go to direct to consumer. Or then you can go to the enterprise route and spend 5 to 7 years of piloting and validating the model before you can get any real traction with employers, health plans, or the providers. We picked the first model because I firmly believe that is the only right way to build a great consumer experience. I have nothing against the enterprise route or the payers or providers or employers, but I know for a fact that when many of these get involved in the early product development process, the product in the end will not be exactly what the modern consumer wants. And but it depends. And I think companies like Elo, in order to make an impact, our goal is to help million people get healthy by right nutrition. That's our goal as a company. And to do that, of course, we have to go business to business. And I think we have to go and build ability to partner with companies like, Verta Health and Livongo and the health plans and so forth. And there's one, I think, element that might be a bit surprising that many people don't think. And that is the fact that employers today are looking at solutions like this already because they have the need to feed people and fulfill the people's demand who are at home today. Like most of us are sitting at home with the Zoom, and these are people who used to sit in an office and get beautiful lunch and dinner and even breakfast from the office cafeteria. So think about companies like Google and Apple and Facebook and many others who have spent a lot of money to create amazing food programs. And now the employees feel that, well, I'm at home eating pizza all day long. And that's what many people do, by the way. And they have gained like 35 pounds over the last year. So what can be done to those people? Because it's not just about that they want better food, but they are not being as productive at home if they gain this weight and they feel unhappy and stressed about that whole situation. So employers might actually move much faster than the health plans or the providers.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, take advantage of that opportunity and ride that wave. Well, what else can we expect on the horizon from you in the next year or two? Anything else you can share?
Well, I think the one element maybe to add into the impact that the nutrition could make for the system. So I done my math, and I mean it might be faulty, but my math is telling that $1 investment in nutrition intervention can save up to $3 downstream in medical cost. And if that's the case, I bet there's a lot of people who are willing to jump the bandwagon. Of course, we need to get the CPT code and the billing system to do that properly. We don't have it today. But I have a feeling that the government will take a look at this. There are already multiple pilots going on today with Medicaid and Medicare, where people with no access to nutrition are getting free food. And of course, the smart people who are doing the test and the pilot, they are not only giving any free food, but they're giving healthy food that could actually help them with the conditions they have. Many of these people also have comorbidities. They often have, they're obese and they have type 2 diabetes already, or they're pre-diabetic. And these tests, I think, are going to be leading in the way where Medicare Advantage plans are going to deploy these programs in the next 3 to 5 years. And I think when it happens, it will become fairly big, not just the business, but fairly big impact in the whole healthcare system where we're today.
Well, a lot of times insurers don't want to cover certain services because of churn of their members, right? Depending on what segment you're in, the commercial segment, maybe every 3 years for the average size customer, Medicare, 7 to 9 years, depending on, who you are. But I think at the end of the day, the government ends up paying for you either in your old age, right? Once you hit Medicare, or if you're disabled, and they end up paying for a lot of people on Medicaid. So it certainly makes sense from a government perspective to figure out how to intervene earlier, because they're going to pay for it 40 years from now if they don't intervene in the interim. Well, we like to ask our guests what books they're reading or what has inspired them, and what is on their podcast playlist. Would you care to share?
Yeah, I'm happy to. My mom is a Finnish language teacher, and she has this amazing library of thousands of books at home, which she has read all of them. As a kid, I always spent my time on the notes in the book, and I split today my time between three different areas of reading: nutrition, science fiction, and business. And sometimes they all go together, like in the case of Elo. But there are three maybe essential reads that I have had in the last few months that I really recommend to a lot of people. So I need to learn a lot about the nutrition science. I try to read a book a month. And one book that I recently read and really have thought about a lot is the Longevity Diet by Valter Longo. It's a super interesting take on the power of fasting on human health. And Valter Longo has a program called Prolon. It's the 5-day fasting mimicking diet that you spend 5 days basically eating 1,000 calories a day. And I have done it now twice. I just wrote about it actually on our blog. And it's a super impactful thing. It works. And we have done now, many people in the team has tried it out as well. It basically rejuvenates your body and your stem cells. Really fascinating. The second, I've been a science fiction buff all my life. I try to read one book a month at least, and I just read one of the most wonderful series I ever read in my life called Red Rising. It's like a dystopian romance in space series, and there's 5 books out. The last book is coming this year, I think. I can't wait my hands on the last book because I got really addicted to that. And the last, on the business section, they are really great way to see a problem from other people's perspective. And I recently read Bob Iger's book, Ride of a Lifetime.
Very good.
And it's a wonderful book, wonderful person. And I think, go from low-level employee to be a CEO of Disney and basically stay with the same company for 40 years. Such a different story than anyone else almost have today. And he's, of course, also been a board member at Apple, which is a pretty big deal as well. And on the podcast side, I do listen quite a bit. I try to read more, but there's one series that I always recommend to people. It's called Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. There are 66 episodes available today. Doesn't sound a lot, but they can be up to 5 hours long. I have done all of them. And if you like history, you will love Hardcore History. And you're going to curse me because I told you about it, because it sucks all the time.
Well, I listen to Dan Snow's History Hits and different things like that. So this sounds like this would be up my alley.
It is really good. Very opinionated.
Good. Well, that's it's all really, really good information. And I will have it for our audience in the show notes. So I want to thank you for coming on as a guest today and really enlightening me and our audience about food as, really precision nutrition. It really is really important. I do believe it's getting a lot more airtime. I do believe that people are now really stepping back saying, wait a minute, some of the science we had in the past may not really be correct. And it really is time to rethink some of these issues. And I think also making sure that we are really educating people as early as possible and as often as possible about how important food is to their health. It's not the outside, it's what's going on in the inside that's really going to make a difference. So thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you.
And for our audience, that's it for another episode of Be Time. We will be back in a week. Thank you.